So just so everyone knows, my name is Thomas Berry. I'm a digital specialist here at Trufla. And today we're going to be talking about SEO and some of the recent updates that are happening in today's marketplace that are going to impact your brokerage and impact your online presence. And we're just going to quickly touch on a few of them here. If I can get the slide to go to the next one. All right. So for those who don't know me, my name is Thomas Berry. So I've been with Trufla for about 3 years. So got a little bit of insurance experience, but I love talking to the brokers because honestly, that's where I learn a lot more about the product and about the services. Before I came here to work at Trufla, I've worked in a couple different digital agencies and done SEO projects for about 5 years now. So I've helped SEO and marketing companies. So I've done SEO and marketing for groups that sell energy, e-commerce products, and even a couple dog food products. So when it comes to helping you get found online or be seen, that is something that I think I've done probably about 1 million times in 1 million different industries. So feel free to ask questions at the end. There's probably a few you'll stump me, but for the most part, I'll be able to help you get noticed online. That's the main goal of what we're talking about here today. Real quick, just for our agenda, we're going to be talking about my favorite acronym, EAT, first. Then we're going to be talking about Google's 2020 algorithm updates, because there are some big updates that recently happened in December and some more coming in May that are going to impact pretty much the online world and your online presence. We're going to talk about the #1 thing you can do to improve your SEO score right now, and that is page experience. And then we're going to quickly go over audits and reports. And I'll actually give you an opportunity to look at some real audits and some real reports, and we're going to walk through how to read them and how to interpret a few of them. And this slide is looking all kinds of weird. So I apologize in advance, guys. We might have to switch just to my desktop view, but let's keep going for now. So EAT is probably the most important acronym Google's ever put out. And I know it sounds a little silly, but it stands for expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. And that is what Google looks at, all three of those things when deciding what your rank is and where you should actually be placed in the search results. And when it looks at expertise, it's looking at your website. It wants to know that you're an expert in your field. When it looks at authoritativeness, it looks at, do other peers in your industry actually think that you are the #1 kind of provider of this service or of this? So I'm just going to quickly pull up my other slides here, guys. And it looks at your authoritativeness. And that means, do people link to you? Do people actually refer to your blogs? Do they repost your content? Are you a real authority in the subject matter you're talking about? In this case, it's insurance. And then trustworthiness. And trustworthiness comes down to, do you have the right security? Are there any robots attacking your site? Links that lead to dark web or to, we call them kind of sketchy backlinks leading to your site. And Google reads on all of these factors and actually creates a score. And that's how they decide where you are in the search rankings. So if everyone can bear with me for just 1 second, because I'm assuming the next slide might have an issue too. All right, so it doesn't. If we have to, I'll switch over to my desktop view, but let's keep going here for now. So the biggest thing that is impacting kind of what's going to be happening in May, and you may have even noticed it because there was a December 8th update as well, is Google's algorithm updates. Believe it or not, Google actually updates their algorithm 8 times a day on average. And that's just shy of 3,000 updates in a year. Not every update changes things dramatically, but there are some, like I said, December and May coming up that are going to impact kind of every website on the internet. And just so you know, the algorithm updates are one of the main reasons why, if you look at your reports and look at your keywords in a single time frame, that's why they always fluctuate, right? One day you might rank #1, the next day you might rank #2, and then by the end of the day you're #1 again. And that's because the algorithm is constantly updating and constantly changing. And the biggest change that's coming in May is Google's preference for page experience. And this is actually a major opportunity. And this is one of the reasons why we're hosting this webinar today is Google's going to rank page experience higher in their algorithm. And to give you an example of page experience, is they're talking about your content, your page speed, your user experience, and your accessibility. And those are really important because before, what Google mostly looked at was backlinks. So how many links lead to your website? and your domain authority. So basically, how long have you been around? How long have you been a reputable business? Which for many people getting into the market, or if you were later to adopt a website and a digital strategy, you kind of had a hard time competing, because who's always going to win? It's the bigger groups who can pay for thousands and thousands of backlinks. It's the older establishments who have been around and had domain authority. They've had broker.com for 10 years, 15 years, and they have a lot more domain authority than a new brokerage starting up. And it became really hard for brokers to compete. And honestly, Google just didn't seem fair, because if you had better content, you were better customer service, and you were better and more knowledgeable in your product, then why would we not rank you higher? So they're going to put a lot more emphasis on page experience. This has been slowly happening for about a couple of years, but as I mentioned, December 8th of 2020, and kind of coming up, they haven't given a timeline. That's the fun thing about Google. They don't tell you when, they just tell you that it will be happening. But it seems like it's going to be May, and this will be ranking your page experience over any other aspects like backlinks or domain authority. So we're going to jump into some things that can actually be practically used on your site right now. And the first is content. So the first thing that is changing is basically a search for how much does insurance cost, or even how much. Home insurance brokers Oshawa, or car insurance brokers Calgary, is really going to be a search for how much does it cost. So in that, what that means is that on your website, you need to be answering that question about price. Average cost of a policy is, the average premium you can expect to pay might be. You want to answer that question of the price, because that is what Google is going to be serving up first. The next piece that really helps with valuable content is making sure you have an areas we serve section. And I've got an example here of an areas we serve section. And you'll notice that some of these pages actually link out to even more direct pages that are just about one location. And this is a strategy everyone on this call can implement today. Is a big part of SEO is writing content. And if you've talked to me before, I've probably told you to write, hey, you need to write a page for, in this case, Melville. You need to write a page for Yorkton, Whitewood, Moosomin. You need to write a page for every single one, and that can be really time consuming for content writers. It can be expensive for yourself as well. But what you can do is you can actually create an areas we serve and list several locations. You don't need to write a page for every single one, but having that list will kind of tell Google at least a little bit that these are the areas you cover, and that if someone in these areas are searching, you would like to show up in the search results. It's not a foolproof plan, but it is a good way to get started. And then over time, you can add additional pages and link them from here, right? So if this was a live site, you'd actually be able to click on the Yorkton, click on Weyburn, click on Moose Jaw, and it would take you to a page just only about that location and the products and services you sell in that location. So that's a strategy I think everyone can employ today. If you create an areas we serve and write some location pages and link them from there, you don't have to write a location page for every single location, just for the ones that you want to target the most. The other part when it comes to content is make sure you have 700 to 1,000 words of good quality content, and make sure it's not duplicated. So one thing that lots of people do to kind of make it easy and quick is they might use the same page and write it several times over and over and over again. Just copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. Google will see that right away and devalue all of your content. So it is an exercise in writing new, fresh content every single time. And then the trust and tone comes into it a lot. So, make sure you're talking more in a helpful manner and an informative manner, and less about scare tactics and kind of like, if you don't do this, if you don't buy this coverage, your house will be destroyed, or you'll be financially bankrupt. If you're talking more in a positive, informal tone, Google does notice that and will put you up higher in the search rankings. And then I'm going to circle back here because I do think it's really important to talk about the pricing question one more time. Just so everyone is aware, if you're on this call and you are part of True Mobile, we are actually able to take your True Mobile database and connect that to your website, so you can actually give live, real-time pricing to your clients. So this example here with the Nissan truck is actually a live data feed from True Mobile that is presenting prices in real time, the average price and the average cost. This is a great thing for Google because not only do they see that you're giving the most accurate, most up-to-date prices, but that you have a live data feed. And Google's starting to pick up on that and say, hey, well, this is live data. It's refreshing every week, every month, and it's the most accurate data out there. So we're going to put them up higher in the rankings. So if you want to learn more about that and you are on TrueMobile, we can chat after this call, or we can answer some questions at the end. But it is a big opportunity for you to be first in your market with a tool that no one else has. The next big piece is site speed. So with websites being both mobile and desktop, and people actually looking at them on multiple different devices, and now with everyone kind of moving around a lot more, we're switching between our data, our home internet connection, public Wi-Fi. So having a fast, effective website is important. We have noticed that basically if you don't have a fully loaded page within 3 seconds, people will abandon your site very, very quickly and not actually get to the content or actually get to read it. Just some quick things you can do right now today for looking at your site speed is you want to reduce anything that has large images. So large images, images are slow to load, you can minimize them and repost them. Animations and videos is another thing that really slows down a website. Now, the SEO purist in me will tell you no animations, no videos, because it slows your website down too much. If I'm being honest, sometimes those animations are great, they're beautiful, and they tell an amazing story. So it's really a trade-off between site speed and look and feel of your website. And you kind of have to make that choice of what you'd prefer. Fix all broken links. So typically within a site, there's 404 pages, broken links, poorly set up redirects that slow down your website. Update all of your plugins. So anyone running a WordPress website, you can probably go in and click on the plugins tab on the left-hand side, and there'll be a whole list that need to be updated. Those updates need to be done on a regular schedule, just 1 for security, but 2 for speed. And then the third big one is Google can actually see you have out-of-date plugins, which just shows them you're not paying attention to your online presence, and they'd rather give the traffic to someone who is providing a better page experience. And then the last is if you're having trouble, you've done all the clean up your website, clean up your links, and everything's still slow, it's most likely something to do with your hosting provider and your security services that they provide. So you might want to reach out to them and just kind of see if they can do any updates or any cleanup. This right here, just so you can see it, this is actually a Google site speed test. So this is a free tool, and I'll give you the link at the end. It's literally, you just can Google page speed, and it's the first thing that shows up. You can put your URL in there, and you can run a quick test. So this is a client using TrueWeb, and as you can see, it's scores about a 95 on how fast the page loads, page speed, insights, and time to interact is the one you really want to look at. So you'll see it there. It's time to interact is on this site is less than a second, which is great. If you're getting into that 3-4 second time frame, you have to realize that people probably clicked on your button and left your site before a page or anything they could interact with ever loaded. So really keep an eye on the time to interact is probably the one metric that you should pay attention to the most. Accessibility and UX. So this is another big one that really plays into your user experience and kind of the page experience. Sorry, let me quickly. There we go. Sorry. So for accessibility and UX, what you want to look at is, are people coming to your website and are they looking at multiple pages? Are they staying on your website for 10 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute? Are they actually interacting with your website? And that kind of goes into the user experience. Where are your buttons? How's the page set up? Does the flow from the navigation to each of your location pages actually make sense to the average user? There's some great UX tools out there. But honestly, the best UX tool is get your buddy, get a friend, have them come to your website and say, hey, put in a car insurance quote. Tell me what you didn't like about it. Put in a home insurance quote. Tell me how it was. Tell me what we could do better. There's actually a great UX specialist. It was called My Mom Bought This, where he literally gets his grandmother to go and buy stuff online, and he kind of records the entire session and puts up with writes kind of a report of all the problems she had and all the things that were barriers for her to actually make a purchase. And then they go and they fix those things. So it's a fun little game, and it's something you guys can all do at home to actually see if your website services your clients. And then another big update that's coming is accessibility. So with more and more people going online, Google's really putting a strong push at having your website be accessible to everyone. And that includes people with vision impairments, disabilities, things like that might have trouble using a standard computer. So if you can't tab between your pages, if your pages can't be read by a screen reader, they will be given less value inside Google search rankings. And actually, the Ontario government has taken a further step in this. And I believe that if you have an office or a business with 50 or more employees, your website has to meet accessibility standards, or you are open to a fine. So, or some sort of penalty. Again, it's a new thing that started January 1 of this year. So they're still figuring it all out, but it is kind of becoming a theme that making sure your website is accessible and has a strong user experience for everybody is going to become more and more important. And just so everyone's aware, this is my soft pitch again for anyone using TrueWeb, is all TrueWeb websites do meet accessibility standards right out of the gate. And we even have some more bolt-on plugins that you can add on if you want to have a kind of regular reporting on your UX and accessibility. That is available within TrueWeb. Audits and reporting. So audits and reporting are basically the lifeblood of SEO, because as you can imagine, Google doesn't give away their secrets. They don't tell you how the algorithm works. They don't tell you best practices. They just let you run audits, run tests, and figure out what they've done to change it. So audits and reporting are definitely the lifeblood of any SEO program, and we're actually going to jump into a few of them that you can do on your own. So again, I apologize, guys. My slides seem to have made a bit of a mess here inside the Big Marker program. The first audit you want to do is a technical audit. So some great tools there that are free are SEMrush and Moz SEO. And if you don't have access to those tools, I do encourage you to shoot me an email with your domain, and I'll run a free audit for you. And the technical audit looks at those page experience items I mentioned, like, do you have broken links? Do you have duplicate content? Do you have meta descriptions and H1 tags? Kind of the more technical aspects of on-site SEO. Page speed is another big one you can check on your own. So as I mentioned, there's Google Page Speed Insights, and you can literally just Google Page Speed Insights, and it'll be the first thing that pops up. It's a completely free tool, and you can run as many websites through it as you like. Lighthouse is a little bit new. That is actually a Google tool that takes kind of some of the technical audit and some of the page speed insights and brings them together. It is a little plugin that does install into your Chrome browser that you can run a report on anytime, and that one is also free. Accessibility. So if you want to know how your website would stack up through like a government accessibility audit, you can go to Accessibee, or Wave is another one that you can check out, and they do free audits. And they even have a nice little plugin that you can plug into your website to kind of update some of your accessibility standards, like a screen reader. Might change some of the colors of your buttons so they're a little more visible. So I do recommend kind of just running a report through there. Or like I said, reach out to me and I'll run one for you. And then another one to check your user experience is Hotjar. Hotjar basically takes screen recordings and it'll actually kind of show what people are doing and create a little heat map. So did they get stuck here? Did anyone from your auto page actually make it to your quote page? Where did they get stopped? And you can watch recordings and get some insights there. And then the one that is available to absolutely everybody is Google Analytics. So if you haven't taken the time to set up Google Analytics on your website, I do highly recommend it. You get a lot of information. And also if you are tracking things year over year, it can be really helpful just to see how your performance is, and you can see kind of changes you've made to your site over time and the impacts it's had. So we're going to jump in, and I'm going to move quick through this last little part so we can get to some questions. These are some great, sorry guys, the slides seem to be mashing together, so I do apologize here, but we can keep going. So overall website traffic is a great kind of way to look at what's going on with your website. And this is actually just a report. All of this information is available in your Google Analytics. Again, if you're having trouble finding it, feel free to reach out and I can set a report like this up for you. The things you really want to pay attention here to that will tell you if you're having a good page experience are pages per session and time on site and bounce rate. And what I mean by that is, if you think about every insurance website, there's always the product page, so let's call it home or auto, and then there's the quote page. So you always want to see kind of that pages per session be above 1, right? The closer to 2 to 3, the better, right? Because that means you know that they saw your content and flipped over to the second page to put in a quote. Or if they're an existing customer, they came to your website and then they flipped over to the contact page to get your phone number, or they flipped over to a web portal to put in a change request or a claim, right? It's the idea that they did more than one action on your website. Average session duration is another big one because it'll actually show how long the average user stays on your website. Depending on your website, a minute might be great. 3 minutes might be great if you're doing a full online quote, or even 6 minutes if it's a really intense online business quote. So take that with a kind of a measuring stick compared to your website. But I would say if you're seeing 30 seconds, 10-second stays, you're probably having trouble with your page experience or your site speed. And then bounce rate is different for every website, but it really just looks at, did people do more than one action before they kicked out of your site or left, right? Did they at least look at multiple pages, click a button, click that phone number button up in the top corner? Did they do something? And then this is a nice one I like to show because this is a report where I can clearly diagnose what the problem is. And you can see it right here. So this is a similar website that was set up, and you can see traffic goes up because the sessions are up 9%. Page views are holding steady at 1.2, but the average session is 35 seconds and the bounce rate is 85. So I can tell you, because I know this client, basically they started running ads that were poorly structured. So they were bidding on keywords that weren't very relevant. Clients came to the site, they stuck around, realized this wasn't what they wanted, and this wasn't what they wanted to purchase, and they left real quick, right? So it drags down your time on site and your bounce rate. So those are some things you can keep an eye on to see how your page experience is actually performing. And then the last thing that everyone can do today, just to make sure that you're set up to meet kind of the new page standards, is HTTP versus HTTPS. So security is always really important to Google. You'll notice this too, right? As users, if you're clicking on a kind of first page results, they're usually really good websites, strong structure, good user experience, right? But if you go to page 2 or 3, those websites start looking worse and worse, right? And that's usually because of their security. So what everyone can do right now is on your website, if you go to the top, right to the URL there, if you have it say HTTP, then you probably have, you're missing a security standard, and it's called an SSL certificate. And you have to, probably the best way to get it on there is to contact your hosting provider and ask them to update your SSL. So that way it'll, next time it'll say HTTPS. This is a transition Google's been making for a while. They've actually they didn't even bother to be polite about it. They literally said, we will stop serving websites that don't meet this security standard and have HTTPS in the title. And it's really important for you as a broker, if you're collecting customer information or doing any transactions online, having a secure website should be number one, just for security from a security standpoint. So if you do that little check and you're having trouble, you can feel free to reach out to me or honestly contact your hosting provider, and they should be able to upgrade your server so it has a little bit more security to it. And I know I talked a whole bunch, and I know I talked real quick, but that's because I wanted to get to some of the questions. So thank you all for coming. I do recommend you throw some questions in the chat, or you can turn your mics on and ask a question. Just so everyone's aware, after this, everyone will be getting an email with just a link to a form. And in that form, if you want to request a free TrueScore report, so that's basically an audit that we do that looks at everything that you're doing from a digital reach. So your links, your on-page score, Everything Google is looking at will actually provide you a score and will rank you comparative to other brokers in your area, so you kind of know where you're at in the broker community. The other thing we're going to be doing is, if you want us to run a technical audit, just let us know and we can run kind of a more technical audit that looks at broken links, maybe missing pages, 404 errors in your site, and we can provide you that as well. So I'm going to get to some of the questions, and I see the first one here is from Richard. So answer your question, Richard. So is that a page on your site or a page about the city? So the way it works best is that I'm going to use auto insurance as the example. If from your drop-down menu, you would have an auto insurance page, and you click on that auto insurance page, and then on that page, you talk about auto insurance, why you're the best one who sells auto insurance in your area, and at the end you have an areas we serve. And on that areas we serve, you can have 10 to 15 different locations listed. And sometimes you'll actually improve your rank in those areas just by having those listed. And then I recommend the areas you really want to focus on. So obviously, probably the places where you have a physical office, you actually write another page just specific to that office, and you link it to this areas we serve section. The next question is from Rick. So Rick, you are right. If your videos are hosted on YouTube, that's actually much better for your site speed. You do lose a little bit of the SEO value because Google can't tell what that video is about if it's on YouTube. But honestly, the trade-off between a faster site to having that video on YouTube is definitely worth it. And not to mention that hosting and maintaining videos on YouTube is much easier than on your website. So I do recommend hosting your videos on YouTube and making sure you kind of have the right links. There are some things you can do to improve your video, like add subtitles, write some descriptions for it. But honestly, the work is a lot to make those videos pop. So it's better just to promote them through your website and link them to YouTube. Yes, David. David asked a great question. Does updating your Google My Business affect your SEO? It's not necessarily updating, like the frequency, but having an up-to-date Google My Business is extremely important because it validates your business. As we talked about, trustworthiness is the #1 thing that Google is one of the things in that EAT acronym. So Google trusts when you're in directories. It trusts when other websites link to you. But the biggest form of trust is their own, which is Google My Business. So in order to get a Google My Business account, they actually verify you through email or through phone. And so that's the #1 source of, this is a legit business and I want to send traffic there. So make sure it's up to date. Make sure the phone numbers are correct. I've known some groups in the past who have tried to do multiple Google My Businesses, even for locations that they don't really work at, or they try and maybe set one up at their home and in an office. I don't recommend that because eventually Google will notice. Are 301 URLs good or bad? Yeah, so typically you'll have 301, so are 301 URL redirects good or bad? Or do you want to have the www before the URL? Honestly, it kind of comes down to how old your site is. So if you've launched a brand new site, you're always going to have redirects because your old sitemap might not meet your new sitemap. So you're going to have a time period where you have 301 redirects just for a period of time, because you'll have users who have probably been to your auto page who might have it cached on their computer, or they might even have it bookmarked. So 301s are always going to be there, but over time you do want to reduce them. Over time, people aren't going to be going to looking at the old website, or their cache will eventually be cleared and they won't have the old URL saved. So over time, you do want to remove some of those 301 redirects. And then, Dave, should I claim my locations on Bing, or do people even use Bing? So that is true. I think it's 3%. 3% of the population uses Bing. But again, back to that acronym, EAT, trustworthiness. The more verified sources of your information, the better Google will look at you. So it is worth I know it's annoying, and they'll send you some texts or even send you some mail. You have to go check. But claiming your Bing location is worthwhile. Yelp as well, but I do find Yelp has a lot of people who will troll your business just for the fun of it. So, but it is worth being in there if you can kind of withstand some of the comments and keep up to date with monitoring your Yelp page.